You're watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanova, and let's see the top stories. Ali Khamenei's son Mojtaba has been elected as Iran's new supreme leader. Oil prices surged to $100 per barrel due to ongoing conflict in Iran. Russia hits Ukraine's infrastructure overnight as Kiev sends military teams to the Middle East as faces pressure over Russian oil. Iran has elected its next leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. He's the second son of the late Iranian supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Members of the clerical body responsible for selecting Iran's next leader announced a decision on Sunday, calling on Iranians to rally behind him and preserve national unity.
Iran has named Mojtaba Khamenei as the country's new supreme leader, following the death of his father, Ali Khamenei, in US-Israeli strikes late last month. The decision was announced by Iran's Assembly of Experts, an 88-member body of senior clerics responsible for selecting the leader of the Islamic Republic. In a statement broadcast on state television, the Assembly said Mojtaba Khamenei was appointed by a decisive vote during an extraordinary session held late Sunday. At 56, Mojtaba Khamenei becomes Iran's third supreme leader, a position that holds ultimate authority over the country's political system, armed forces, and key strategic decisions. A mid-ranking cleric, Mojtaba has long been viewed as a potential successor to his father and is believed to wield significant influence within Iran's powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the country's wider security establishment. Despite never holding elected office, he has for years been considered a key figure behind the scenes in Iran's political and religious circles. Supporters in Tehran welcomed the announcement, expressing hope that the new leader will continue the course set by his father. International reaction has been tense. Earlier last week, US President Donald Trump warned that Washington would oppose the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei, saying the United States should have a role in Iran's leadership transition. With tensions across the Middle East escalating, Mojtaba Khamenei now assumes leadership of the Islamic Republic at a pivotal moment for the country and the wider region.
Iranian civilian and military officials have expressed their oath to the new leader, Ayatollah Saeed Mojtaba Khamenei. And President Masoud Pezeshkian said his leadership will herald a new era of dignity and authority for the Iranian nation.
I'm in downtown Tehran, where preparations are underway to stage a ceremony to express the oath of allegiance with Iran's new leader. Meantime, officials in Iran across the civilian and military ranks have stated their support to the new leader, Ayatollah Saeed Mojtaba Khamenei, after his election was announced early Monday. He substituted his father, Ayatollah Saeed Ali Khamenei, who was killed by US-Israel air raids on 28th of February. Supporters have welcomed the announcement, expressing hope that the new leader will continue the course set by his father. The decision was announced by Iran's Assembly of Experts, an 88-member body of senior clerics responsible for selecting the leader of the Islamic Republic. In a statement broadcast on state television, the Assembly said the new leader was appointed by a decisive vote during an extraordinary session held late Sunday. President Masoud Pezeshkian said the smart choice of the Assembly of Experts will herald a new era of dignity and authority for the Iranian nation. And Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that election of Saeed Mojtaba Khamenei as Iran's third leader will strengthen national cohesion. The Revolutionary Guards, as well as the army, also expressed their support to the election of Ayatollah Khamenei, stressing their complete obedience and up to their last drop of blood to the leader who is Commander-in-Chief of Iran's armed forces. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting for A News from Tehran.
Oil prices have surged above $100 a barrel, hitting their highest since July 2022. This has prompted global supply chain fears in the middle of the widening US-Israeli conflict with Iran.
Global oil prices jumped sharply on Monday as the expanding conflict between the United States, Israel and Iran raised concerns over disruptions to energy supplies from the Middle East. Brent crude climbed to above $110 a barrel, its highest level since mid-2022, while US West Texas Intermediate also surged past the $100 mark in early Asian trading. Both benchmarks posted gains of around 15 to 20%, extending last week's sharp rally. Markets have been rattled by fears that the conflict could disrupt shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, a key passageway for global energy trade that normally carries about 1/5 of the world's oil supply. Traffic through the narrow waterway has largely stalled since the war began, and disruptions to shipping and damage to key Middle East oil and gas facilities have affected supplies from some of the region's largest producers. The latest spike came as Iran confirmed Mojtaba Khamenei as the country's new supreme leader, following the killing of his father Ali Khamenei in US-Israeli strikes late last month. Analysts warn that prolonged disruption in the Gulf could push oil prices even higher, raising fuel costs for consumers and businesses worldwide.
French President Emmanuel Macron held a phone call with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, urging Tehran to stop attacks on other countries in the region and ensure freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. He also stressed the need for a diplomatic resolution to the conflict. Macron spoke with both his US and Iranian counterparts on Sunday, ahead of his trip. As the first Western leader to speak with the Iranian president since the outbreak of the war, Macron wrote on X that he had stressed the need for Iran to immediately halt attacks on countries in the region. He did not provide details of his conversation with the US President Donald Trump. Explosions rocked southern Beirut early Monday as Israel struck what it described as Hezbollah infrastructure in the Lebanese capital, sending smoke over the skyline. The renewed Israeli offensive has forced tens of thousands of residents in southern areas to evacuate, with the military saying its goal is to target Iran-backed forces. Sunday strikes in southern Lebanon killed at least 20 people, pushing the country's death toll above 300 since the conflict began. The attacks come as Iran continues missile and drone strikes across the Gulf in retaliation for US and Israel actions, which Tehran says have killed more than 1,300 civilians. Tensions remain high as attacks continue across Israel and neighboring areas. The ongoing conflict is also affecting air travel and daily life in the country.
Tel Aviv was hit again in the last hours, at least 6 wounded by Shrapnel, one seriously as Iran fires suspected cluster warhead missile at Israel. It is becoming increasingly common to see this type of missile in the last days, specifically concerning situation in the north where shoulders are facing each other in direct confrontations and drone and missile attacks are constant. 2 of them were killed yesterday. The Haifa refinery was targeted by a combined attack, 70 missiles launched from Iran and 40 drones and rockets from Hezbollah. No official reports of serious damage or victims. Following the announcement of Khamenei's son as the next Supreme Ayatollah here in Israel, he's already considered the next target. Regarding the reopening of flights, things have already started to become complicated. Only one plane can take off per hour, and considering the threats, even that schedule is not always being met. Only 70 passengers are allowed on each flight. Priority is being given to those who already have flights scheduled in recent days and ending up stranded, which amounts to thousands of people. From Tel Aviv airport, it's already being said that it will be very difficult to return to normal operations until the middle of this month. It should also be added that getting a flight ticket now costs a fortune.
EU leaders addressed diplomats in Brussels on Monday, warning that Europe must act decisively amid rising tensions in the Gulf and the unfolding crisis in Iran. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, along with EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas and European Parliament President Roberta Metsola, urged member states to stand united, support the people of Iran, and ensure Europe is seen as a credible global actor ready to respond to threats.
And our message to the world is that they should not underestimate Europe's resolve, strength, and willingness to act. We need to allow Europe to be seen as the credible actor that it is. Iran's attacks on the Gulf, including in the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Oman, they are condemnable, they are unjustifiable, and they must stop immediately. Just as every member state must know for certain that we will stand together to face down any threat. And in this regard, we must continue to stand with the people of Iran. Their fight for freedom and the ability to choose their own destiny is not political, but existential.
Russia has carried out a major overnight attack on Ukraine's transport and energy infrastructure, while Ukraine is sending military teams to the Middle East to share its expertise. Meanwhile, Slovakia and Hungary are pressuring Ukraine over Russian oil supplies.
Russia launched overnight missile and drone strikes on Ukraine, targeting the country's transport network. The attack involved 2 ballistic missiles and 117 drones. One strike hit a passenger train travelling from Kyiv to Sumy. Ukrainian officials say the railways have been repeatedly targeted in recent months, causing delays in several regions. Moscow said it carried out strikes on Ukraine's military, industrial and energy facilities, while Ukraine reported heavy losses inflicted on Russian forces in several areas. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Sunday that Ukraine's first military expert team will go to the Middle East on Monday. More teams are also planned. Zelensky told journalists in Kyiv that he met Dutch Prime Minister Rob Jetten to discuss joint weapons production and Ukraine's experience defending against Iranian-made drones.
We've got some messages how to help people, how to help civilians in the Middle East, and also how to help American soldiers who are in the bases in some countries. And we said that we will send experts and we will provide everything they need to save them.
Zelensky wrote on X that it is important to produce weapons with the Netherlands and that this work will continue and grow. He also said they discussed investments and production levels. Dutch Prime Minister Jetten said European partners are working with Middle Eastern countries which can learn from Ukraine's experience and provide better ammunition for the battlefield.
I strongly believe that the partners in the Middle East can learn a lot from the Ukrainian experience, but perhaps can also provide Ukraine with some necessary ammunitions that are not effective in the Middle East attacks, but could be effective here on the battlefield. We have the ambition and the intention to scale up the drone production facilities. We want to do it together, so both with companies in the Netherlands and companies in Ukraine, so that we can boost production in both our countries to make sure that we can supply all the troops on the battlefield as soon as possible and to increase the production for Europe as a whole.
As situation in the Middle East escalates, Ukraine is seeking to turn the crisis to its advantage by highlighting the battlefield expertise it has gained during 4 years of fighting with Russia.
A major fire has engulfed a building at Glasgow Central Station, forcing the closure of Scotland's busiest rail hub after part of the structure collapsed. The blaze began in a vape shop on Union Street on Sunday afternoon and spread through the B-listed Victorian building before it partially collapsed hours later. More than 65 fighters and 15 vehicles were deployed to tackle the fire. Train services to and from the station have been cancelled, and officials say the station will remain closed until further notice. No casualties have been reported. Nepal's 35-year-old rapper turned politician Balendra Shah is leading in the parliamentary elections and is heading for a landslide according to official results. 165 seats will be chosen by direct vote and 110 by proportional representation, and so far Balen's party has secured 124 of those seats and 58 of the proportional representation seats. Nepal has long faced political instability, which has hurt the economy and increased unemployment and corruption. The September 2025 protest started after a social media ban brought thousands to the streets and led to former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigning. During protests outside Mayor Zoran Mamdani's home in New York, 2 improvised explosive devices were thrown by counter-protesters, fortunately failing to detonate. Authorities have arrested 2 suspects and are investigating the incident with the FBI and the U.S. Department of Justice.
Police in New York City say an explosive device thrown during protests outside the home of Mayor Zoran Mamdani could have caused serious injury or death. According to Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, the device, a jar packed with nuts, bolts and screws and fitted with a fuse, was ignited and thrown on Saturday outside Gracie Mansion, the mayor's official residence. The device extinguished before it could explode. Police said 2 devices were thrown during the protests, which involved opposing groups. The second device is still being examined. Authorities arrested 2 men at the scene, 18-year-old Amir Balat and Ibrahim Kayumi. Investigators say Balat was among counter-protesters opposing a demonstration led by far-right activist Jake Lang. Lang had organised a protest outside the mayor's residence against what he described as an Islamic takeover of the city and public Muslim prayers. The protest drew about 20 participants and was met by a larger counter-demonstration of roughly 125 people. Mayor Mamdani later condemned the protest, saying the violence that followed was deeply disturbing. The New York City Police Department said it is working with the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the United States Department of Justice as the investigation continues.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss Iran's leadership change and the escalating conflict shaking the Middle East. Stay tuned. Welcome back to A News. Our top story for discussion. Iran has appointed Mojtaba Khamenei as its new supreme leader, just days after his father Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in joint US-Israeli strikes. Meanwhile, Israel and Iran continue exchanging missile attacks across the region, with Gulf states reporting new strikes and casualties. Analysts warn the escalation could reshape regional power dynamics and global energy markets as oil prices surge and diplomatic tensions deepen. To help us understand the implications of this leadership change and the widening war, we're joined by Luciano Zaccara, Middle East and Iran political analyst who joins us from Doha, Qatar. Mr. Zaccara, welcome to the program and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
So, first of all, Mr. Zaccara, how significant is Mojtaba Khamenei's appointment as Iran's new supreme leader at this moment of war? And considering that he has never held elected office, how prepared is he to lead Iran during what may be its biggest crisis in decades?
Well, on the one hand, is his capability to know, we need to test now, because as you said, he had no previous official position, at least visible. And this way, I assume we will figure it out very soon. But it's very significant because even though his name has been mentioned many times in the succession discussions along the several years until now, his name was always discarded because actually the Islamic Republic was not interested in becoming a hereditary republic, appointing the son of Khamenei. The fact that they appointed him now in this particular circumstance, I think, is something that is a result of the dynamic of the war. Khamenei died as a martyr. Therefore, calling his son as a successor is a very clear signal to the United States and even the rest of the world that Iran will continue as it was doing until now. So his appointment is very clear signal of continuity of the current situation, the stability of the regime, the continuity of the legacy of both Khomeini and Khamenei, and not giving any signal that the foreign policy would change anytime soon.
So Mojtaba Khamenei is known for his close ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. How important is the IRGC's support in consolidating his authority?
I think in this particular circumstances, even more important than before. It was clear that Mojtaba was the candidate of the IRGC since a long time ago, But depending on the particular situation started since October 2023, his role, the role of the IRGC increased at political level much more than any time before. Therefore, the fact that he is the one now giving orders at the end of the day, it was clear a couple of days ago that the IRGC is only responding to the leader, and the close relation between the leader, the new leader, and the IRGC will make things more clear, that the political power, the presidency and the foreign ministry have not many things to say about the military strategy. And therefore it's Khamenei, the son now, who will determine what would be at the end of the day the legitimate military strategy that may go very different compared with the foreign policy that Pezeshkian and Arakchi are trying to impose.
Mr. Zakharov, do you expect any internal power struggles within Iran's political or clerical establishment after his succession?
Well, so far it doesn't seem that it's going to happen. I mean, we were waiting several days. Some sources already mentioned that Khamenei was appointed as a leader 5 days ago already. So it's not clear whether the appointment has been done some time ago and it was delayed due to security concerns, or actually it took longer to decide. The only election that took place of a leader in the Islamic Republic history was in 1989 when Khamenei was elected, and it took maximum 3 days, from the 6th to the 9th of June 1989. And there were several elections within the sessions in the Assembly of Experts because Khamenei did not have the majority. So it was necessary discussion, debate, and finally two rounds of voting process. We don't know exactly how this has been now. Some people claim that actually there was not a clear majority of members of the Assembly of Experts supporting here. But again, this we are going to know in the future. What is clear is that once it is elected, so far I didn't see any sign of this dissent between the clergy and combat. Again, this I don't think, if there is a dissent now or people that they are not happy with its election, would now make it public. I think that now the political elite is close behind the new leader appointed, because there is a very particular situation in which every time one is appointed to any position is being targeted by Israel and the United States. So I assume that there is a common sense that first of all we need to protect our country, and then we can discuss other issues.
Mr. Zakharov, we are also seeing strikes across the Gulf and rising casualties. How close is the region to a wider regional war involving multiple states?
Hopefully, the different attacks that Iran has been conducting as a retaliation is not changing the way in which the GCC states, at least, are considering their involvement in this war. I mean, so far, all the GCC states, they claim that they are defending their territory with their own forces, something that is very clear here in Qatar. But all the countries are seriously committed not to engage in an offensive war against Iran, and still not allowing their bases, the American bases, to be used against Iran. They don't want to engage in an offensive war because this would mean an escalation. And so far, all the GCC states, they are just interested in de-escalate, not prolonging nor making this war much more complicated. So it's about patience, about how long this will continue. But so far, these states are not interested in engaging. I think I'm not 100% sure about Jordan, but my guess is Jordan more or less considered the same, even though they have been targeted.
So oil prices have also surged amid the escalation. What could this conflict mean for global energy markets and economic stability?
Well, so far we are seeing how high the oil price and gas price are going. And I think this is the main victory of Iran. They are making clear that even though they are not going to win the war, because at military level they cannot, they are making the whole world to pay the price for this war that was started by Israel and the United States. And they are making it very clear, closing the Strait of Hormuz, making the different refineries in the GCC states and the gas production to be cut or partially cut, is making all the industrialized world to suffer, mainly China, the Southeast Asia, Europe, countries that they are also the ones that they are buying oil to Iran. So the Iranian oil production is also being affected.
Yes.
But again, Iran is not worried too much in winning this war, but to making everybody to notice that attacking Iran is expensive for the whole world.
So President Donald Trump says the United States, together with Israel, will decide when the war ends. How does Washington currently view Iran's new leadership?
Well, I think Trump made it very clear that he wanted to be the one approving the new leader, something that Iran said, of course, this is not going to happen. And that's why they chose someone that they knew Trump would never be happy with. Now, again, the ball is on American side, whether Trump wants to keep going until they eliminate all the military power, which is complicated to happen, at least without a real invasion and without engaging for 6 months, more or less, something that Trump said a couple of times, but I don't think he really meant it, because I don't think the whole political spectrum in the US would be happy with United States engaging in a long-term war and mobilizing 1,000 more troops to the Gulf. Neither they can make it. I mean, economically speaking, for the US would be a tremendous effort at the military level, military production as well. But of course, he claims that he's the only one that he can stop the war, because he is the one who wants to claim victory at the end of this war, something that is becoming complicated. From the military level, he can claim now victory if he wants. He can stop the war, claiming that we eliminated the missile program, we weaken severely the Islamic Republic. If he wants, he can. But oil refinery was attacked yesterday by Israel, producing one of the most tremendous images since the war started. And it looks like Israel is not interested in stopping, because the final goal of Israel is not claiming victory over at military level, is to eliminate the Islamic Republic. And so far, this is not happening.
So finally, what scenarios should the world be watching in the coming weeks that could determine whether this conflict escalates further or moves forward de-escalation?
Well, I think that, first of all, the continuation of sporadic attacks in the GCC, this is a very clear signal. The fact that Iran still has the capability to keep all the airport closed, the Strait of Hormuz closed, the ports closed. As far as this keeps going, probably the United States will continue. And I think the other development is what is going on in the White House, how long the United States or the political elite in the US is ready to continue this without calling the troops back, or at least to claim that they achieved what they wanted at military level. I think that these are the two elements. Unfortunately, it's the military developments which are going to determine how this is going to be in the short term. I don't see a political solution on the table right now, because of the three actors, the United States, Israel, and Iran, are equally claiming that they are on the right side of history, and therefore it's becoming complicated to negotiate.
Luciano Zacchara, thank you very much for your insights and for joining us from Doha. We truly appreciate your time and analysis on these rapidly developing events. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, after the break, we'll take a look at the major stories from the region. Now, let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Russian grain is once again moving by rail toward Armenia through a route that had been closed for decades. The latest freight train departed from Baku earlier today, carrying hundreds of tons of grain. Our Sabina Abubekirova has more.
We are at the Biladari railway station in Baku, where a freight train carrying Russian grain departed to Armenia on Monday. It traveled in transit through Azerbaijan. The train consisted of 7 wagons carrying a total of 488 tons of grain. This shipment is part of a route that recently reopened after decades. The first train traveled from Russia to Armenia through Azerbaijan in November 2025, the first time since 1990s. Since then, more than 21,000 tons of grain have been transported along this route in over 300 wagons. Russian Railways says these shipments are now becoming regular and the route could soon be used for other types of cargo as well. Sabina Abubekirova, A News.
Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian called President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan on 8th of March and thanked President Aliyev for visiting the Iranian embassy to offer condolences following the death of Ali Khamenei. He also said the airstrike in Nakhchivan had no connection to Iran and would be investigated. President Ilham Aliyev stressed the need to clarify the incident where 3 drones struck the Azerbaijan exclave of Nakhchivan, hitting the airport and injuring 4 civilians. Since the conflict in Iran erupted, evacuation operations at the Astara border crossing have continued, with more than 1,900 people from many countries entering Azerbaijan. Officials say the crossing is also being used by foreign nationals and diplomatic staff leaving Iran as tensions persist. Chimnaz Shahlar has more from the Astara border.
From February 28 until today, more than 1,900 people have been evacuated from Iran to Azerbaijan. Among them are 314 Azerbaijani citizens. The largest group of evacuees are Chinese nationals, with 541 people crossing into Azerbaijan. They are followed by 290 citizens of Russia, 173 from Tajikistan and 123 from Pakistan. In total, citizens of more than 60 countries have entered Azerbaijan through this crossing. Diplomatic missions are also using the Astara checkpoint. Most recently, Hungary's ambassador to Iran and 8 embassy staff members were evacuated through this border crossing. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan's cabinet of ministers announced that cargo transportation across the Azerbaijan-Iran border, including transit, will resume from today. From here, we are at Astara crossing. We continue to monitor the situation. I'm Chimnaz Shahlar with Nijat Gasimov reporting from Astara for A News.
Kazakhstan is evacuating its citizens from the Middle East as tensions in the region continue to rise. According to the country's foreign ministry, thousands of Kazakh nationals have already been brought home, while the evacuation operation is still ongoing. Our correspondent reports from Almaty.
Rising tensions in the Middle East have prompted Kazakhstan to accelerate the evacuation of its citizens from the region. According to the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, more than 7,300 Kazakh nationals have already been brought back home. The evacuation is still ongoing. People are returning on flights operated by Kazakh and foreign airlines, while others are leaving the region by land, crossing through Azerbaijan, Armenia and Turkmenistan. Earlier estimates from the foreign ministry suggested that around 8,500 Kazakh nationals were in areas affected by the escalation. And amid the tensions, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev welcomed a statement from Iran's leadership announcing it would refrain from attacks on neighboring countries. According to Tokayev, such steps could help reduce tensions across the Middle East. Meanwhile, officials in Kazakhstan are also watching the economic implications of the crisis. National Bank Chairman Timur Suleymanov says the country's economy remains heavily linked to oil revenues. More than half of Kazakhstan's export earnings and over 30% of government and national bank revenues come from oil. Suleymanov says that when global oil prices rise, export income increases as well. That means more foreign currency enters the domestic market, which can help support the national currency, the tenge. According to the National Bank chief, higher oil prices could also bring additional revenues to Kazakhstan's national fund. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
Turkey has deployed fighter jets and air defense systems to northern Cyprus as tensions rise in the eastern Mediterranean. The move follows last week's missile strike on a British base in southern Cyprus. Adam Morrow has all the details.
Turkey has deployed 6 F-16 fighter jets along with air defense systems to northern Cyprus in what officials describe as a precautionary step to enhance security and protect the island's Turkish-speaking community. In a Monday statement, the Turkish Defense Ministry said the deployment was carried out within the framework of what it called phased planning, aimed at strengthening the defense of northern Cyprus. The ministry added that the move reflects Ankara's close ties with northern Cyprus and its commitment to ensuring the security of Turkish Cypriots. Officials said additional measures could be taken if necessary, depending on further security assessments. The deployment comes amid heightened tensions in the eastern Mediterranean after a missile strike last week hit a British military base in southern Cyprus. According to regional officials, the missile, which was linked to the broader conflict involving Iran, Israel, and the United States, landed inside a British sovereign base that is located on the island. The incident raised alarm across the divided island, prompting stepped-up security measures and renewed calls for vigilance from both sides. Northern Cyprus maintains close political and military coordination with Ankara. Officials say the latest deployment by Turkey is intended as a defensive measure amid growing regional instability. Authorities in Ankara say developments will continue to be monitored closely as the situation evolves. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Now we'll take a short break. Right after the break, we'll discuss the Organization of Turkic States' strong joint statement on the escalating Middle East tensions and attacks targeting Turkey and Azerbaijan's Nakhchivan. See you shortly. Welcome back to A News. The Organization of Turkic States has issued a strong joint statement on the rapidly escalating situation in the Middle East following a meeting of foreign ministers in Istanbul. The ministers expressed deep concern over the growing violence in the region and condemned attacks targeting both Turkey and Azerbaijan's Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, which they say were launched from the territory of Iran. They reaffirmed support for the sovereignty and security of member states, warned that continued hostilities threaten regional stability and global energy markets, and called for diplomacy and dialogue to de-escalate tensions. The Organization of Turkic States, bringing together Turkey, Azerbaijan and several Central Asian countries, has increasingly emerged as a platform for political coordination and regional security cooperation amid rising geopolitical tensions. To discuss the implications, we are joined by Ibrahim Mammadov, head of the Turkic Western Engagement Initiative at the Danube Institute, speaking to us from Budapest. Mr. Mammadov, welcome to the program and thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a great honor to discuss such an important issue today.
Thanks. So, Mr. Mammadov, first, how significant is this joint statement from the Organization of Turkic States at this moment of escalating tensions in the Middle East?
So the major importance comes here for the joint security of the member states, because if we look closely into the clauses of the joint statement, we can see a clause which states that any threat to the security of a member state of OTS is a matter of concern for the entire organization, and it stresses the inadmissibility of the use of force. It's important here to mention that Azerbaijan is the chairman of Organization of Turkic States this year, and one of the major goals that were presented by Azerbaijan were joint military drills. So I assume together with this joint statement is a large step forward towards greater security cooperation within the organization.
Mm-hmm. So do you see this as a sign that the OTS is becoming a more active geopolitical player rather than just a cultural or economic platform?
Absolutely, that's very important to mention here, that OTS is no more just a cultural or economic platform. It's very important to mention here that the organization has taken the route of integration through critical projects. One of such is the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline, the Trans-Caspian trade route, the green energy undersea lines through Caspian and Black Sea, and together with the latest complications in the regions around, in Russia-Ukraine case or Iranian case, we can see that here specifically Azerbaijan emerges as the safest route for trade and aviation, which is very significant for all members of the Organization of Turkic States. And the addition of a military cooperation, security cooperation to the organization definitely makes it a much more geopolitically significant player in the region.
Mr. Mammadov, how might this statement affect relations between Turkic states and Iran moving forward?
Well, I believe that this should add actually more trust between Iran and the Turkic state, because for several times the statement itself mentions that any kind of resolution should come from the diplomatic means. And we can see specifically that the joint statement condemns the attacks that are coming from Iran to Nakhchivan, that came to Nakhchivan, an attempted attack to Incirlik base that landed eventually in Hatay. So this statement adds further trust, trust for cooperation in the future, because it supports the diplomatic forms of resolution of conflict unless the member state is attacked. And I believe this is a better solution for mutual trust between the country and the bloc.
So the foreign ministers warned that instability in the Middle East could disrupt global energy markets. How real is that risk from your perspective?
We should consider different case scenarios here. For sure, if we look into the sides of conflict, let's say US and Israel, I believe it would not affect US or Israel in a strong sense in the short term, because with the success of US, with the successful operation in Venezuela, US has more than enough, and even before had more than enough production capability within from its internal production. And Israel is very much secured by Azerbaijani and Kazakh oil imports. And given the security of those countries, I don't believe that Israel or US will be affected on the short term. However, if we look into the long term if the conflict passes to the long-term stage, it's definitely possible that the closing of the Strait of Hormuz and the rising energy prices on gas and oil will definitely disrupt the European market. And this is very crucial here, because European Union members, the big members such as Germany, France, and they have been importing their LNG from countries like Bahrain, Qatar, which have stopped their export of gas and oil as of last week. So I believe, yes, in the short term, the major sides of conflict should not be affected. However, on the long term, the fluctuations in the market and the fact that US allies will be affected can definitely play a significant role in this process.
Mr. Mammadov, how closely aligned are the foreign policy priorities of Turkey, Azerbaijan and the Central Asian members when it comes to Middle East crisis? And do you think the organization could play a diplomatic role in regional de-escalation or mediation efforts?
Well, I believe as of right now, all countries look into the stabilization of the situation that's revolving around Iran. Unless the cases like the hit on Nakhchivan happen again. And even in those cases, the joint statement has proven the resilience of the alliance between the Turkic states, that Turkic states, all of them, be it Turkey, Azerbaijan or Central Asia, want a diplomatic resolution of the conflict unless Iran poses a threat to any of the Turkic member states. And these, specifically here, Azerbaijan and Turkey are bound by the Shusha Declaration, which means any attack on Azerbaijan, in a significant sense, is also an attack on Turkey. It's important to consider here that Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan are also official allies as of last year, and Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan are very close as well. Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan are also allies, official allies by treaties. This joint statement has shown that the readiness of OTS to support all genuine international efforts in restoring peace and stability in Middle East under the international law, which means that OTS is ready to act under international law, be it diplomatically or in any other military or economic terms as well, as long as international law allows.
Mr. Mammadov, how might major powers such as the United States, Russia or China view a more coordinated OTS stance on regional security?
Well, it's important to mention here obviously from Russian perspective, Russia views this situation with a big concern because Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan are the members of CSTO, which is a Russia-led bloc. However, the failure of Russia to support Iran in this conflict actually has proven that Turkic states can move along together in a more successful and coordinated way for the security of all member states. However, we see that the greater joint coordination of Turkic states further moved Russia to coordinate deeper with Iran, because as of yesterday, with the interview of Foreign Minister of Iran, Mr. Araghchi, to U.S. media, Russia has been given the intelligence information about the U.S. bases and their coordinates in the Middle East. So Russia is deeply concerned. China, I believe, is more concerned regarding the energy prices at this moment because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And we have not seen, again, a strong support from the Chinese side to the Iranian side, and definitely deeper Turkic cooperation in a military sense poses concern for the Chinese foreign policy in the region, as it views the region from the security perspective of Russia in this sense. However, for the US, I believe that is a great opportunity because as of last year with the Donald Trump's administration, we have seen very strong support towards greater Turkic cooperation and coordination. And this includes, for sure, the deeper coordination and cooperation can only happen through joint security of the regional countries as well. So the views are different. However, that's how I would describe it.
Ibrahim Mammadov, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insights. We appreciate your time and perspective. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our news update for the hour. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned to A News for more updates.